Well, welcome everyone back. Man, this next workshop's you're gonna have some practical things that you can take away today that you can put in use immediately. One thing I want to comment about, we just talked about the on and in, working on the business while you work in the business. Whenever I've conducted a workshop at an organization for an organization. Uh, Sometimes the organization will allow me to do this. Is if you'll notice here, I've got a cap here. And what we do when we come to this workshop, the on and in, uh, is that I have people put on this cap backwards. In other words, on the front of their forehead, it shows working in the business because that's where 85% of the leaders are. That's where they spend just about 100% of their time. And once we get through with that workshop, then I ask the group to turn the cap around this way where it's people wear it the right side, looking where now they understand what it means and the importance and why it's important to work on the business while we are working in the business. So this one we're talking about the 1, 2, 3, and one of the first things I wanted to ask you, if you completed the motivational survey, these 10 questions, and hopefully you had fun and just it doesn't take you long to read, to go through that survey, and it's for your use. Bob, if you can also put in the chat window here sometime soon about the link to these various bonuses like this by you registering for this intensive. But the key thing here, it's not on the sheet, but there is the 11th question. And that is, how do you suppose the people who work for you would answer this motivational survey? Well, in my conversations with supervisors, managers, executives of organizations throughout the country, they often ask about employee motivation. And their questions are typically along the lines is, you got to listen to this one real close, is what should I do to, that's a key word, to my people to make them have my sense of responsibility, dependability, and excitement about providing our customers with value adding products and services that exceed their expectations. However, the answer, of course, is not to do anything to them, but to start, this is getting back to thinking for a change, is to start doing more things with them, with them. And that is basically the 1, 2, 3. So there's two common leadership problems I have found. And man, I violated, years ago, I was violating both of them. There was a period of time prior to 1987, man, that's a long time ago. I was living this path of the Lone Ranger. I mean, prior to then, I would come up with an idea because I was always like Mr. Idea Man. And so I'd come up with an idea. And on my own, just on my own, when I had this idea, I would come up with all of the questions that I needed to get answers for. Then I would go and do on my own all the research and then come up with all of the answers to those questions. Then I went to our leadership team. This is the first time they've even heard about this. I'd go to the leadership team and I basically would lay it out there and just say, look what I've done for you. And to be honest with you, it never did go over well. Well, what's different in 1987 was because our business was doing well, not great, but doing well. And a lot of people don't realize, I mentioned about the moving business. Well, a lot of people don't realize 99% of our business was actually outside of the city I live. And we were moving people like from California to Illinois, from Florida to Virginia, from the state of Washington to the state of Connecticut. That was 99% of our business. And I mean, we were helping people relocate. We're talking about tens of thousands of customers. And so, but what happened in 1987 is, fortunately, at the moment, it didn't seem fortunately, but fortunately, I had a wake-up call. And for me, the most revealing part of this workshop that I attended occurred on the first day when I read the results from what we call today a 360-degree leadership evaluation. This type of evaluation that I gave to, it was kept confidential, but I gave it out for them, my family, friends, and coworkers, and it was all confidential, and they gave feedback on my leadership. And in this case, they had shared, in my mind, they shared their honest thoughts about my leadership. So here's how I'm summarize their message. This is basically what all of them were saying. Bobby, when you get an idea for us to carry out, we really want to help you. But get us involved at the beginning of your decision-making process and before you make a decision about what to do and how to do it. Well, that was the issue. And, but I tell you what, this unexpected news was stunning. In fact, when I first heard the results, I'll be honest with you, I was flat out mad. It was not until the next morning that I began to cool down and process the findings in a rational way. It was a good thing I had a night to sleep on it. Now, to be honest with you, is that the thoughts that went in my mind when I was mad in my head was, well, when from the leadership team particularly, is that they don't understand me. They don't understand I was doing them a favor. They were, they're busy with their everyday work. And so I'm helping them by not interrupting them to ask of their opinion. For you see, prior to that time, whenever I got that idea, I would do everything I said that I would do. And I'm thinking, I thought this, I was a good leader. And so when I would present this idea, the team just did not accept the idea. It would often take months and months to roll out. And I was constantly having to explain why it was such a good idea. And I found myself spending a lot of time and energy pushing and prodding to make it happen. It was draining and discouraging. Why? Because our employees felt like it was always, I mean, this is basically what they were saying. It was always Bobby's idea. Since they had no part in the process of developing the idea, they felt no ownership in the final solution or the initiative. Also, they were longing for me to ask for their input. And many times they had valuable information and a unique perspective on the issue or the opportunity at hand. And I never did. I never did receive it. So the path of the Long Ranger, this is a top-down approach where neither the leaders nor the employees are very satisfied. And you may be seeing this in your own organization today. And leaders find that the decisions and goals aren't well implemented, which it just took forever, and I can't say we were very successful in a lot of what I thought was good ideas. And the employees feel decisions and goals are arbitrarily being imposed. Now, the second common leadership problem is what I call the iceberg of ignorance. And through this Japanese researcher, they found that in organizations, typically only, this is amazing, this is the shocking, this is part of, the iceberg, how most of it is submerged, is at the top of the organization is only 4% of the problems are known by the top managers. That is very sad that because they think they know it, but they really, really have not done their job to be able to really know what's really, really going on in their organization. So here's about the iceberg of ignorance. Most leaders think they know all of the problems. I mean, that was me, and the challenges and the opportunities of the organization. They think their own skills or expertise are good enough to navigate the business or the organization, and that they think they are bright and knowledgeable in the technical aspects of their work. So here's some more things on the iceberg of ignorance. The leaders think that they have little or no ignorance, which will impede the execution or diminish the results of even the best laid plans. And they think that their problems and frustrations stem from who? Their employees. The truth is, it's coming from them. They're the problem. Like we talked about working on while we work in the business. Now, here's the amazing Gallup survey. In the Gallup survey, this was done a few years back. And so they were looking at employees being engaged in their organization, in what was going on there. And I tell you that this was a huge sampling of a survey with over 85,000 companies and over 1 million employees. And it revealed that only 33% of the employees felt like they were being engaged. These employees were highly involved in and enthusiastic about their work and the workplace. And this is the other key thing. They are psychological owners that drive the performance and the innovation and move the organization forward. I can share with you, even when I sold my company in 2011 to a publicly traded company, is is that if you walked around our place of business and talked to our employees, you would have walked away with a sense that they would basically be telling you that they own the company and not Bobby Albert. That is how well applying this 1, 2, 3, the impact that it had on our culture and our organization. These are the people, this 33%, these are the people that come to work, just like, you know, mentioned, that they come to work enthusiastic, they come with passion and excitement. Now, here's the sad part, is 51% from this survey of the employees felt like they were not engaged. The employees are psychologically unattached to their work and company because their engagement needs are not being fully met, and they're just putting time, but not energy or passion into their work. These are the employees that come to work every day, and basically they're just clocking in and clocking out, clocking in and clocking out. Now, here's even sadder. 16% of the employees in that massive survey were actively disengaged. The employees aren't just unhappy at work, they are resentful that their needs aren't being met and are acting out their unhappiness. And every day these workers potentially undermine what their engaged coworkers accomplish. These are the people that are walking the hallways and they're speaking badly about the company, and they're speaking badly about the boss even. So in other words, we have 67% of the employees are either not engaged or they are actively disengaged, which is a sobering thought that it's that massive. So you can tell there's a lot of room for improvement. I love this quote from a guy, Jim Lundy, who mentored me for over 20 years. He calls it the employee lament. And he said, "We, the uninformed, working for the inaccessible, are doing the impossible for the ungrateful." So what does every CEO want? There's three things every CEO wants, and it's results, results, results. So, and secondarily is to increase revenue, decrease in expenses, and increase in productivity. That's what every CEO wants. And you may ask, well, how do you know? Well, I was one. So, but listen to this from that Gallup survey. What the employees, there's 5 things that employees had mentioned in that survey that they are wanting from their leaders. And one is to demonstrate that they care for them as an individual. And the second is understand that they can and want to contribute toward the organization's goals. And the third is to provide a culture where people have a sense that they belong here. And well, let me go back to this here. That number 2 is what we're talking about here, is the 1, 2, 3. And but it's interesting when you solve this, when you involve employees in the decision-making process, it seems to address all the other 4 things that are in this list here. Here's 2 more. Is their employees are looking at, do you create an environment of constant learning so that so they feel they can do their best in their job? And finally, does this organization or this business, does it stand for something that they feel good about, something they can even support? Why? Is that the reason why this is so important is that there's such a gap between, isn't it amazing? There's such a gap between what the leaders want and what employees want. It is possible. Is it possible that the leader is the one who is disengaged or actively disengaged? Is it possible that the reason the CEOs and leaders of maybe a division or a department are not having the results that they so much desire is because they are the lid of their organization successful results. You know, when I was talking about does this organization stand for something? You know, what did Jesus say in Matthew 22 verses 37? As if you were looking for a Christian mission statement for yourself personally, perhaps, or what I call super objectives, is here's a great verse. Is what did Jesus say? He replied to a person asking a question, what was the greatest commandment? And he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all of your mind. This is the great and first commandment. The second is like, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. I tell you what, that's pretty plain there as to what all of us would have that we would have a will, a desire that we would accomplish this every day, that this is what we stand for. And I can assure you that it can have a big impact on the culture of your organization. Now, one thing I want to share with you, it has to do with relationships and results. Just like I mentioned earlier about on and in, it's not one or the other. The same thing applies here about relationships and results. If you've ever read much from Jim Collins, he has a concept. He's talking about it's not the tyranny of the or, it's the genius of the and, is where they found organizations that had the greatest success. And so most effective leaders understand that their fundamental importance of overseeing their team's drive for results is they have to be good at analyzing, planning, prioritizing, deciding, initiating, and following through on commitments. Now, and most effective leaders never focus on results at the expense of relationships. It's not an either or situation. Focusing on both relationships and results multiplies your effectiveness. Now, one thing I have found is that most managers, while intelligent and well-meaning, tend to prepare a path to drive for results. In other words, what I mean by preparing the path is that they tell their subordinates the results they want. It's the what. They're focused on the what, and they tell their subordinates what they want with little or no input, which is the how, from their subordinates. These managers don't realize that investing in relationships actually helps achieve significant results. In relationship-oriented participative leadership style prepares the employee for the twists and turns along the path as they serve customers, suppliers, and again, yes, even suppliers being served by you. I know that sounds counterintuitive, and each other working together as a team. The employees who feel valued as much more are much more willing to go the extra mile when those twists and turns happen. We're going to talk more about enjoy change in the last workshop because you know yourself, they will always happen, the twists and turns. I know in our company, we talked about use the term triangulation. In other words, you're constantly zigging and zagging, zigging and zagging, zigging and zagging. And because there's just constant change. So let me just share this with you. If you look at this, what I call the effectiveness quotient, and look at the bottom left hand, lower left rectangle on the graph below, here. It represents the effectiveness of someone who reaches a 6 on the results scale, and 1 on, which you could probably say that's above average, and 1 on the relationship scale, which they're very low. So this person would focus on the bottom line, the end results of their work. Also, it's fair to say that this person probably doesn't care much about building or enhancing relationships, even for those whose effectiveness is represented by a single shaded area of the graph. Hope is still not lost. They have some options to increase their level of effectiveness. And the first option is to perhaps work diligently to increase the drive so one option is to increase the drive for better results. Well, the goal is to raise that 6 to a 9. If this person worked individually and drove others harder and harder with great intensity to achieve this, he or she could say their effectiveness quotient would have increased but it would only increase by 50%. And they would probably be, which I was doing this at one time, I never could figure out what was going on, but they'd be dead bodies laying around. And because I pushed people so hard, because I was driving for excellence. Well, to be honest with you, I was driving for perfectionism. And I finally began to understand that we're not looking for perfectionism, we're looking for progress. So, so there'll be better results, but at the expense of the majority of this person's relationships, both professionally and even in their personal life as well. But the second option is for this person who strive to increase his or her people skills and the level of relationships. You might be thinking, Bobby, because I get asked this all the time, Bobby, if I take time to focus on developing people and relationships in my business, won't my results suffer? Well, that's a good question. Again, it's not either or, and so situation. So let's look at the second effectiveness quotient and graph. And so here you're looking at a different way. Another option here is, suppose through some personal development, the leader now raises his or her relationship skills from 1 to 5. And my experience and observation is the level of the leader's results will also increase, possibly from a 6 to a 7. Uh, and with no additional intentional effort in that area. So the total effectiveness quotient will now be 35, will be 35. The leader will have exponential increase in original effectiveness of 6, effectiveness by 6 here, from effectiveness of 6 by 583%, simply by focusing on relationship part of leadership. And so it's relationship and results. And and here's what I've learned is when you enhance relationships as you drive for results, your effectiveness increases exponentially, as we had shown there in the graph. And so one of the best ways to allow this to happen is have a participative leadership style. And this, we're talking about employee engagement here, but here's the paradox. The more leaders include others in the decision-making process, we're talking about a process here, the stronger the results and leadership. It's never failed me. Likewise, the more leaders exert absolute control, like micromanaging, the weaker the results and leadership. You'll still get results, but they'll be weaker, and you won't even realize it. So that's the reason why we're talking about the 1, 2, 3. A key to motivating folks is to start doing things with your people, not doing things to your people. And one way of doing more things with your people is by including them in the decision-making process through the participative leadership approach, what I call the 1, 2, 3. I love this quote from F.W. Woolworth when he said, "We would rather have one man or woman working with us than 3 merely working for us." Great quote. So what is this 1, 2, 3 I keep talking about? And here it is. It's pretty simple. At the very beginning of the decision-making process, and this is what it took me a while to figure out, and before making a decision, the empowering leader seeks input from his or her employees. I tell you what, I finally had to discipline myself, talking about going back to discipline, is that when I got an idea, see, my old days, I'd pull out a yellow tablet and man, I would start going to town with all the questions and research and all that kind of stuff. Well, I had to have for me, and when I went through that whole process, guess what? When I went through it without anybody helping, what happened is that when I got through, I made a decision. And that's what I presented to our employees. And that's the reason why it never did go over well. And so the discipline was, when I got an idea, I quit writing anything down on a piece of paper or putting in a computer, or anything like that until after I started engaging the leadership team, particularly, and then other employees. So here it is. If such a leader asks these 3 questions, it's pretty simple. Who can help me make a better decision? And who will have to carry it out? And who will be impacted by it? And these are the people you want to get involved in the decision-making process. Again, who can help me make a better decision? Who will have to carry it out? And who will be impacted by it? So it doesn't, let me just say this. Let's talk a moment here about what it's not, what 1, 2, 3 is not. It does not mean running your organization as a democracy. This is not a decision-making by committee. As a leader, you as a leader, you always have the ultimate authority, and you also have the ultimate responsibility for the decisions and the results. It does not mean creating a consensus decision among all the members of your team. Consensus decision, this is my observation, usually take forever to be reached, and it always yielded diluted results. And it's not always the right decision making approach. Let me give you an example what I mean by that, because that sounds kind of weird. Is that in your building where your workplace is, let's say a fire took place, where you're gonna walk out to your, like I'd walk out my office and I said, everybody go to that fire exit and exit out right immediately because we have a fire in the building. Well, that's a command. Well, see, you wouldn't stand around and share with everybody like, well, what should we do? And, how, we got to do something, you just wouldn't do that. You would immediately act right then in a command type of environment. So how does it work? How does it work? And let me just share this. This is an oversimplified way. There is it becomes more complicated based on the size of the organization, but a good 4-step approach with your leadership team and one small group is to start with a meeting to expose your team to the change or the idea or the opportunity or the problem, and then give them some time to let the information incubate. It's kind of like, taking when you're cooking like a crock pot, just letting things kind of cook, in the crock pot and give them enough time to absorb whatever that might be. And the second step of the 4-step approach is to pull them together again and ask for and record their input. You could take a flip chart and get their input about things to consider and what suggested decisions to make. Step number 3 is to frame a decision and meet with your team to review, tweak, and create buy-in for the decision. And the last step is to have the team review the final decision. You just don't go charging off and, because once you made a decision based on the input of everybody, because you're the one that have to make the final decision, that you see if there are any more ideas for improving it. And let me just share this with you. This, I saw this in our own organization when I implemented this 1, 2, 3 approach. And just like the on and in, the 1, 2, 3, we introduced these. You remember I mentioned earlier about we shut down the company for a whole half a day. One time we shut down the whole half a day and we introduced the on and in as to gain everybody's understanding of how we plan on working on the business while we work in the business. And we spent, we used the 1, 2, 3. Actually, we didn't call it that at the time, but we were using the 1, 2, 3 approach as to we were actually relocating our company, and we spent a whole half a day talking about how it was going to work and what wasn't going to work and all those kind of things. Much like you actually yourself, the reason why I have these breakout rooms or table groups is so that you actually been experiencing what a 1, 2, 3 can be done. And But the same thing came when we spent another half a day. We conducted a whole half a day introducing the 1, 2, 3 our employees, and we had a good reason to get their input on some main things that we needed their thoughts on. And but as well, they were learning what was going to be part of our culture in our company. So after a new goal or an offering is announced, leaders have a choice. They must decide how much they want to invest in the process, how they say and do it, including how they involve engaging people in the decision making. The results-oriented manager are focused on reaching the end goal and how to reach it most efficiently. That's a key word, efficiently. They focus very little on the process, how they interact and involve or engage their people. These managers devote much energy and time during the implementation phase, just like I used to do in my old way. Is this extra effort is required in order to convince the team to get on board with the implementation plan, which they had very little to do with forming. In contrast, the relationship-oriented leader, this is one that is thinking relationships and results, is focused on achieving the desired goal as effectively, see, there's a difference there, effectively as possible. And these leaders realize that the relationship built and fostered among the team make a huge impact on the ultimate outcomes. They focus on how they say and do things as they press forward toward the goal. And they spend more time up front with their teams, soliciting opinions, brainstorming, asking questions, following the process of what I call goals and controls. They spend more time focused on the process of engaging employees. But the neat thing about this, they enjoy a smoother and shorter implementation phase due to the high level of ownership and engagement that results from this type of approach. The results-oriented approach might show results sooner than the relationship-oriented approach. However, any early advances of the results-oriented approach will be eclipsed by a high-performing, unified team led by a relationship-oriented leader. And in some cases, the results-focused approach will produce negative results because of poor implementation. And I don't know how to explain it except that is that in my organization, we always got better results. We always got better results. So now this, going back to the Gallup survey, which I find is very fascinating, is that what they found when employees were the 33% of the employees that felt like they were being engaged at their organization. This is what they were experiencing in that organization. So when you, as a leader, engage your employee, you will experience better results based on the Gallup survey. And what they saw is a 20% higher sales, 24% lower turnover in high turnover organization. They experienced 59% lower turnover in low turnover organizations. They had 41% less absenteeism, and they had mainly in an area like manufacturing or light manufacturing, they had a 70% fewer employee safety incidents. Now, I don't know about you, but those are significantly results that Gallup found in that massive survey they did. And one thing that I found, that I discovered, is rather than constantly focusing on the results, give me the results, give me the results, I which I begin to learn how to focus on the people. This is key. Focus on the people who give you the results. And so that's coming back to, you know, the developing the people and personal growth. So let me kind of tell you a little quick story here. Years ago, uh, several of our moving trucks began to show their age and required a large amount of maintenance. It was time to shop for a replacement of the trucks. Now, instead of making an executive decision, informing the rest of the team after the fact, we pulled the drivers and the crew members together to talk about buying these new trucks. And we asked them to help us do the research and spec out the new equipment, which they were very excited to and agreed to do. And during their research, now this is, they were shocked with when they learned how expensive these new trucks were. I mean, I knew because I was always looking at this, but they just blown away. And to my surprise, now this is back in the days, you know, before iPods and smartphones and things like that, is to my surprise, in their attempt to save money because they were so taken back how expensive these trucks were, they recommended that we leave out the radios in those trucks and some other features. Now, if most of our employees were, fairly young that worked on the front line on the trucks. I mean, listening to the radio in the cab was like real important to them. And so, but what was interesting, since the drivers and the crew members made those recommendations, their attitude were very positive in spite of lacking the features such as the radio, because they had been involved in the process and were given the opportunity to provide the research, the feedback. They felt a sense of ownership for these new vehicles. And so, but you know what? In my previous industry, decisions like this are typically made by the CEO or a key leader. It makes sense that such a critical capital expenditure be the call of the top leader. Yet as our business grew, I saw how this participative leadership style deeply impact the alignment and the performance of our team. And ultimately, I made the final decision, but my decision making was informed by the research and the recommendation of our team members. And it led to results where a good decision and a supported alignment team. Now, one of the other neat things about these drivers and these crews that got involved in this, prior to then, I was constantly having, after those drivers and those crew members, to clean out the cab when they came in at the end of the day, because there'd be Coke cans underneath the seat, or there'd be some kind of hamburger bag that from lunch that's stuffed underneath there. And pretty soon over time, you got a whole bunch of Coke cans and hamburger bags, just a whole bunch of that stuff. Well, guess what? When they got involved, they took such an ownership. I no longer had to ask them to clean the cabs up. And when a driver, for example, had a helper with them, see, in the old days, with the older equipment, a helper that went with them Well, I know this, you wouldn't allow this in your own car, but they had a tendency of putting their feet up on the dashboard. Well, you can imagine, over time, it would damage the dashboard. Well, I guarantee you, the drivers they weren't going to let this helper do that because they thought this is my truck. Well, and no longer did I need them, to stay after them day after day to fold their pads in the back of in the truck where the furniture is, kept and moved, and our tie off the equipment. They had to use like some dollies so it didn't roll around and damage, somebody's furniture. And I no longer had to do those things because they had gained ownership. So let's look at some benefits when you engage employees with the 1, 2, 3, and what benefits could or should you experience as a team. And the first one is employees feel good about themselves because they have a sense of achievement and enjoy receiving recognition for their accomplishments. Number 2, employees really appreciate being appreciated, and they feel useful. They welcome the opportunity to participate in any decision related to their operation. They actually enjoyed being respected as a useful professional whose opinions are important, and they are excited to be respected and a valuable person that thinks as well as being a thinker as well as a doer. And the third is the employee's performance is enhanced. They come to work on time daily, have a good attendance record, work for a higher purpose, and give a full day's pay for their full day work for their pay. And number 4 here, customers. This is the customers. They appreciate being dealt with respectively and are delighted because delighted employees enthusiastically serve them. Here's some more. Is employees become truly inspired and enhance the organization's chances for success by virtue of their input. The second thing here, another benefit, is morale and teamwork increases, which leads to improved performance and optimum results. See here, the leader's impact is multiplied, not merely added. It's important for us as leaders to multiply, not just add to ultimate results. And this third thing on this slide here is employees buy in and the ownership, because employees are involved in that decision-making process, and through their early participation, people gain informal pre-training. You don't usually count that. In other words, in this pre-training, by them being involved, they have the knowledge and the appropriate perspective that helps them to effectively implement the decision. And it's no wonder such folks become cheerleaders of the final decision. And here's 3 more benefits here. Employees gain a better understanding of the results that are expected to achieve when invited to engage in the process. They also are likely to understand why. This is really key when you're talking about enjoying change, is to understand why it is important to achieve these results. Another is that employees who are part of the process feel their opinion is valued and are more likely to be committed to working within the team to achieve the results. And the last thing here is that organizations experience both highly motivated employees and high performance teams as all of these factors come together, just like I saw in our own company where people thrive and profits soar. I love this quote In human resource terms, they talk in terms of it's called discretionary effort. And what that means is people giving over and above what's required of them. And listen to this quote here, because it describes the discretionary effort the best I ever found. And it says here, you can buy someone's time. You can buy someone's physical presence at a given place. You can even buy a measured number of skilled muscular motions per hour or day. But you cannot buy enthusiasm. You cannot buy initiative. You cannot buy loyalty. You cannot buy devotion of hearts, minds, and souls. Guess what? You have to earn these things. Good stuff. Good stuff. That's when you see discretionary effort in your organization, and that's how you develop a high performance team in an organization, by starting with the 1, 2, 3. But let me just share with you. Here are some common excuses that I hear from leaders for not involving their employees in the decision making process. One, it never occurred to me that I should. Another, hey, I'm the leader, so I'm in charge. Here's another, I don't have time. Well, that's probably one of the biggest ones. I don't have time. Here's another, it's not my job. Well, you've heard that before. Here's another, I'm already getting enough input from my people. And finally, I tried it once and it didn't work. Well, I tell you what, this particular leader, I wonder how, when they were learning how to ride a bicycle, I wonder how many times that they failed before they were able to ride that bicycle. They just didn't go one time. And so now let me just share with you what are some negative consequences by not using the 1, 2, 3 decision-making process that you may have been observing even in your own organization. When it gets around to making a decision, there's incomplete information. I've seen often, this is what was going on in my own company before I made the change. You save an ounce, but you pay a pound. I saw also lack of inspiration and enthusiasm whenever when I took my idea and started pushing it rather than involving people in the decision making. And you have unhappy employees. People, this is sad, but you have employees that just flat out feel like they were being used. So I love this quote from John Wooden when he said, if you don't have time to do it right, when will you have time to do it over? And I tell you what, I was way back there. I was constantly having to constantly redo things. So we've been talking about the 1, 2, 3, the 1, 2, 3. And so again, just a quick review. What is the 1, 2, 3? It is that at the beginning of a decision-making process and before making the decision, the empowering leader seeks input from his or her employees, and such a leader asks these 3 questions. Who can help me make a better decision? Number 2, who will have to carry it out? And number 3, who will be impacted by it, and to get them involved, engage them in the decision-making process. And I tell you what, you'll see things over time. You got to start somewhere, but over time, you'll see a highly engaged teamwork take place And when that team, you'll start winning championships with that kind of team, of a high performing team. And so what I'd like for you to do before we take a break for lunch is that just write down 1 or 2 points that you feel like that you would like to implement, or go back in your notes and asterisk, do an asterisk on some things